Everybody. So, on today's episode of Life in Law, we have our special guest with us today, Stacey. Stacey, thank you so much for coming.
Hi, Theodora. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. So, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself just to get started?
So, my name is Stacey Sunletter, and I'm a physician assistant and mother to four children. And my ex-spouse is an attorney, formerly for Child Protective Services. And I filed for divorce in 2013 because my children disclosed severe physical abuse and sexual abuse. And anticipated the courts would try to protect my children, but instead they focused more on protecting my ex's reputation at the expense of our children. So that led me to um, a lot of searching to figure out why things happened the way they did and what was the impetus of the whole situation. And that's why I'm here to talk with you today and share some of that knowledge.
Okay, thank you so much. And I'm so sorry that you had to deal with that. I know you, and just like myself and countless other mothers, have experienced such horrific things within the juvenile and the family court systems. And um, I think today's episode, we're going to focus a little bit about talking about the pros and cons of confidentiality within these proceedings, how it can be both a way to protect people and also help perpetuate fraud. And so, what's your stance about having a proceeding be open to the public?
So, at first glance, someone might think that confidentiality is a good thing because when you uh, go to a court for protections from child abuse in your family, domestic violence, you like to think that it would best serve you to not have public knowledge of these details that follow you around wherever you go. And at first glance, most people would feel that way. However, confidentiality also can work against you. And this is a forum that allows corruption to a ripe environment for corruption. And here I was going to the courts, seeking to protect my children through the courts. And like I said, they chose to protect my ex's reputation over the welfare of our children. So confidentiality was not a good thing in my case. And that sparked me to start organization of court watching in our area, because we feel that transparency fosters judicial integrity, that when judges know that we're watching what they do, they're more likely to follow the law.
Absolutely. And you're in sort of upstate New York, right?
Yes.
And does your court or any of the courts in the district live stream any of the proceedings for the public?
So when we embarked on our court watching agenda, um, we were met with a lot of opposition because the family courts had not traditionally been open to the public. Um, well, they were always open to the public, but the courts didn't recognize it. And so even if judges were being honest in their adjudication, they didn't let people into their courtrooms for family court cases citing confidentiality. And then that just kind of became a trend or the norm. But when you examine our Constitution, you examine our state laws, all courts are open to the public. So we had to show the courts that we know our rights and we care to exercise our rights. So the first case I asked to go in as a legal stranger and observe a case, it was ignored. So I had to step up my act. And so uh, this is what I want people to hear and learn so that they can do it in their state, their county, whether you're from New York State or another state. The recipe is pretty much similar, the same to open up your courts. So the judge ignored me. Nobody responded when I emailed and asked for access to this case. And it was a case of a learning disabled couple who their children were taken from them. They had 4 babies. The first one was taken at 2 months, where they didn't even have a chance to abuse or neglect anyone. And all the rest of their children were taken from the hospital. And one child was killed in foster care. So we were going in to watch this case, and I emailed the judge and the law clerk saying that, we have an intention to go in and watch this case, and we were just ignored. So at that point, I told the judge and the law clerk, if we are denied our First Amendment right of access to the court, and denied under the New York State Uniform Rules of Family Court 205.4, which acknowledges the courts are open to the public, even including the media, that we're going to file a non-party witness affidavit to the case and serve it to the parties to the effect that our constitutional right to observe this case has been denied. And to this judge's credit, because there was just that norm among the judiciary that they didn't let people in, she actually told us that she had to go to her lawyer to see if, in fact, we could go in and court watch. And she was told, indeed, she had to let us in. So
So
she let
even the
us in.
judge didn't know the law.
She didn't know. And she told us she had to ask for legal advice. And so she let us in, but she told us that for this virtual hearing, so I'm answering your question in a long roundabout way, but it was a virtual hearing. But she told us for this virtual hearing, we couldn't have virtual access, but we could go into the courtroom during the virtual hearing and watch from the courtroom. So that's what she made us do. So sometimes judges will flop around if they're going to do now a virtual hearing or an in-person hearing. And they'll do all sorts of squirrely things sometimes to avoid court watchers. They'll change the case last minute. They'll hold the hearing an hour early. They will say, "Oh, you arrived late," and then keep delaying letting us in. They do all sorts of things. They put our names on the court transcripts that we were present. Like, that doesn't happen in criminal cases. They don't ask everyone their name and put them on the transcript as being in appearance.
It's almost like
All sorts of things.
intimidation in a way. Like
Yes,
it's like then they like blacklist you.
yes, yeah. So it's exactly, so they're trying all sorts of things. So sometimes they'll say they don't want to allow virtual hearing because they don't want somebody to record it and put it on social media, you know, etc. But
So
at the
let
end of
me
the
ask you
day,
something though. So, because I know like other moms that I've spoken to from states like Louisiana, for example, the criminal court will have a link, and I think California, they'll have a link so anybody anywhere can just log in. New York does
yeah,
not do that.
no. So then on future cases when we were denied our right of access, then I went to the New York State Chief Administrative Judge, because they're the overseers of the courts. And I know other states have similar titles for their administrative offices for the courts. And the chief administrative judge tasked to his law clerk to legally research our right of access to the courts. And so she responded to me, gave us all the case law. And it's just off the top of my head, it's like U.S. Globe newspaper, something along those lines. But that's a U.S. Supreme Court case, so that applies to all states. That the courts are open to the public, the family courts are open to the public, including the media. So, but for us, they argued that from the chief administrative judge's office that denying virtual access is not denying our right of access to the courts, because we can still go in person. But you see, they're obviously trying to limit based on our schedules, based on, these sorts of things. Some people are moms, they can't leave the house to go and court watch. So they're trying to create damage control. Arguably, and maybe someday I should file this in court, arguably, the New York State statute, Uniform Rules of Family Court 205.4, the way it's written says that attendance of court watchers is limited to number of seats in the courtroom. And I've had judges like say, "Oh, there's only 2 chairs here," but um, but arguably, virtual access makes the number of seats unlimited, and they shouldn't be limiting virtual access for the public because it is our right to know what's going on in our courts.
Absolutely. And if it was a high profile case that was being live streamed on a news network or YouTube, we could have millions, if not billions, of people on at once. And so I think that it just does help perpetuate that fraud. And when they say, like, I know in Connecticut, the juvenile proceedings and orders and everything to do with juvenile court is fully confidential and sealed from the public and not accessible by the public. And that's when you start to see like these botched illegal adoptions or termination of parental rights, or kids are getting trafficked right and left and people are wondering what's going on, but you can't even do that research and find out.
Yeah. Right now, I think, our courts are not safe. They're not a safe forum right now. It doesn't matter what state you're in. They're not a safe forum. So at this point in time, I think that transparency is more beneficial for people than trying to protect their confidentiality. Sad, sadly. I mean, we're trying to explore other avenues with our court watching group. Um, we're having some people get certified as mediators to decrease the public's reliance on the courts and try and settle things on their own so that they can have their own, create their own destiny, whether, the couples are friendly with each other or not. I think that both people would still want to be more in control of their destiny than a third party state with its own interests that's not safe right now.
I
And
think that's
frankly,
great. I mean, a lot of people don't understand, like, even when it comes to divorce, like, if you were to reach an agreement with a mediator and come up with that agreement and both sign it, then all you do is submit it to the court and a judge stamps it and it's official. Versus if you let them take control, it'll drag on for 10, 20 years and you spend $500,000 and you guys ruin everybody's lives. And so I think many people don't realize that there's other options. I know that I always thought going to court was the only option, but other than mediation, are there other things that people can try, like alternatively than going to the courts due to all of this corruption?
well, there's all different things to try. Obviously, you and I, we come from um, the more extreme type cases, and I wouldn't ever do something like this with, someone who allegedly sexually abused my kids. I couldn't do this, but there's creative options like sharing a house so the children aren't displaced, the parents are, you know. But that would be more like for people who don't want to be married, but they can still get along because I wouldn't want a predator who could put cameras in my house, you know.
Yeah. And
Um,
like, if like for somebody who maybe their child discloses potential sexual abuse to them and their first instinct, like mine was, would be to call DCF, call the police, go to court, file an emergency order. But when you do that, it leads to all these issues, which if I knew what I knew when I know now, then I would have done things differently. So would you think that maybe it's better for people if they find this out to try to make arrangements maybe with through domestic violence advocacy agency or a safe house or something like that to try to leave the situation quietly rather than going to the authorities?
yeah. So that's something that I contemplate in my mind because I think today, I know I'm pretty, I'm pretty sure my ex bribed a senator to rig our case. But even though he had that option available to him, I don't think that today he's glad he made that choice because what it led me to do is expose everything. And so now a lot of people are trying to scramble under the pressure of exposure for what happened. I offered my ex the ability to mediate at onset of the case. And I bet today, if he knew that this was all going to happen and that it was going to be out in the public, the facts of our case, I think he would have chosen to mediate if he had the ability to choose today. So, uh, because the courts are not a safe place, again, I kind of think mediation is still better. And it's almost to me like I question Where did this myth come from that domestic violence victims can't mediate? Like, what's the source of that? Because is that maybe the source of that being the courts and the corruption?
I think a lot of it has to do with the federal funding, and a lot of people don't realize with the Title 4D and the way that the whole system is set up and child support, there's so many factors that end up funneling back in and funding the pensions for these judges. So it's in their best interest and the state's best interest to let this drag on as long as possible. Get them in the reunification therapy, the drug testing, the therapist, the
The
supervised
racket.
visitation center. It's yeah, and which what leads me to my next question is, I know that I had recently made a video on my TikTok account about your RICO lawsuit. So, what's the current update? Any updates with that?
So the RICO lawsuit's pretty interesting. There are some really exciting developments I wish I could tell you about right now because they're super exciting. So I'll put that there. But already the RICO has had the effect of, um, for the first time in 11 years, the CPS agency that my ex worked for actually indicated their own guy. So that
Wow.
was the effect of the RICO, that the first time in 11 years, his own people indicated him for the first time. So we are in custody court right now. And before, they used to do all these illegal things to me and witness tamper, saying, I called your kids' counselors, the judge, I called your kids' counselors and directed them to ignore any past or ongoing medical evidence of sexual abuse. So since the RICO, this is not happening. And so because he was just indicated, we're back in family court and now they're proceeding to trial and taking things more seriously. So even if I don't win on my RICO, it's putting pressure for them to actually follow the law and do their job.
Yeah, and also I think it's important again with the transparency and once the truth is put out there for the public to be able to see it, then it they can't really hide. And um are either you or your ex-husband using a lawyer for the family court case?
So that's another part of the strategy that we're discussing. And I think I can say this. I just have this question because uh, I filed for the petition. I filed the petition because he was just indicated, I think, 4 times by CPS. I think it was medical neglect for not getting the children's migraines attended to, and then that's causing them to miss like 88 and 77 days from school. So it's both medical neglect and inadequate guardianship, I think he got indicated for. So I filed the petition, but he and his attorney did not file a response. And I know my children state that they want to come live with me. So I don't think there's any reason to go to trial because there's no triable issues if he didn't respond to the petition.
And now in New York, do those type of petitions get heard in juvenile court or in family court?
Um, so this is progressing in family court right now.
And you were going pro se?
I was, but I think I'm going to bring an attorney uh, from another county to legally advise me, but I'll continue to represent myself.
So more like a limited scope type of representation.
Yeah, because I think I'm entitled to summary judgment. There's that requirement that things go to trial, but if he didn't respond to the petition, that means he conceded to everything I stated. And
Yeah.
then it's the children's wishes to be with me. So I don't think there's anything left to argue. And so I don't even think discovery should happen because then that's just going to be a fishing expedition for something because they don't have anything to respond with.
Yeah, I definitely would look into the summary judgment aspect. And if you could get an attorney to clarify, then it could save you a lot of money, time, and energy with a potential trial.
Right. And plus again, a trial in this instance where he didn't even respond to me prolongs my children's um suffering or like, because they want to be with me. So then it denies them longer.
So, and you have two children, right?
I have four, but
Okay.
one, the court has admitted they no longer have jurisdiction because she's 18. And the other one turns 18 in like 2 months, and my twins are 15.
Okay. So it's really like the twins that are kind of the main
Left.
focus due to the
Yeah.
ages of the others. And
Yep.
do they take into, a lot of people ask all the time, oh, well, after a certain age, aren't the kids allowed to just say where they want to live? Does New York do that, or is that just like a rumor?
No, they're supposed to do that, but again, we're getting into details of the case, but I know that the AFC lied to the court about their wishes and said that they wanted to be every other week. That's not what they said, and I can prove it. So I did win on my motion for the judge to do an in camera. So with my summary judgment, I would say it's time to do the in camera with the twins.
So, and just to clarify, that would be the judge in their chambers, and the kids would be on camera and they would testify from in that format.
Yeah, I don't think in camera necessarily means that there's an actual video camera, but the one that's the most important thing, because they did this to my older child, which was wrong. A judge is not, and it's creepy, a judge is not to meet with your children without a stenographer present.
So
And
you're saying
my
there was no court reporter and no transcript?
Yes, this is what happened with my older daughter. And she said, she complained to me, Mom, he said really creepy things to me in there. So,
What?
yes,
And there's no audio
yes,
either? No record?
right,
What?
right. Yep. So, you just want to make sure, that it's a controlled environment, that if a judge is meeting with your child, that the stenographer is in the room, because that is the law. I know it's the law in New York State. And I can't imagine it not being the law anywhere else, because no judge should be meeting in a room with a child without a stenographer present,
Yeah, definitely. And I
because that's
wonder if
creepy.
you have the right, I'm pretty sure you do, but I wonder if you have the right to bring your own private stenographer.
Well, they probably would frown upon that, because really the transcript from the meeting of the in camera with the judge, at least in New York State, is to not be released unless an appeal is filed. And then if an appeal gets filed, it gets released to the appellate court directly.
But what if you're not filing an appeal? Then you can't get a transcript?
I think so.
Because it seems like, again, if that's the case, that they're trying to
They,
cover their tracks and hide things.
yeah, and they can lie again, right?
Exactly. And, when you had the proceedings recorded on Zoom, does it show the camera? Like are there cameras in the courtrooms that like also record video or just audio?
When you're talking about the in
I
camera
mean,
means
like in any hearings where they're, I guess if they're on Zoom, then obviously they're going to have the video. But I mean, in Connecticut, they never have like video cameras, so you can't actually see the judge. You can't see the people, so you can't. The judge could say, like in my case, she said I was disheveled, that I was like she insulted my appearance, and like my appearance was fine. I was not disheveled. She said it was disorganized. I had papers everywhere. No, I didn't. I had one folder. So if there was a video camera in there, I could prove that. But she can write whatever she wants in the order, and all you have is the audio, which doesn't show what I look like. And even if I was disheveled, since when is it like is since when
imminently dangerous.
to lose custody to like look like messy? Like you know what I mean? Like what if I don't have a hairbrush? Like
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, again, the why call you disheveled? What's that going to prove? Because we're looking for imminent danger. So you can be disheveled all you want. I mean, I don't advise it, because we're talking about strategy and securing your kids. But so what? What if you're a farmer and you show up in your, pardon my language, your shit kickers, right? You're out there, you're working, you're being a man with your hands. Why would it matter if you showed up in your work attire and that's considered disheveled? So we're looking for imminent danger is the threshold to restrict access or to allow the government to step in. So whether you're disheveled or not, it's none of their business.
exactly. And like it's just the fact that a judge can literally like put blatant lies like that, and like they're so sneaky and like calculated what they're doing because they know that there's no way to prove it unless, and then God forbid, if you pull your phone out anywhere in that building and try to record or anything, you will get, the marshals will jump down your throat. I've been threatened to get put in jail for recording. They have signs everywhere, no recording, no recording. And I believe that the United States Supreme Court has previously ruled that you are allowed to record in public places. And I know you have people like that, what is it, Long Island auditor that all the time is winning cases against, and it's almost like these government officials and these courts and everything, they try to violate our rights, knowing
Yes,
that we probably don't know our rights and that we won't
right.
challenge them. And then when we do, they try to intimidate and retaliate. But once in a while, people do get justice.
Not knowing the law makes you vulnerable, and you will believe their lies because all those signs saying that cameras aren't allowed in the courtroom, those are lies. And I'm pretty sure if you look up the definition of court officers, that they are by definition peace officers. And the law is that you can record any peace officer in the discharge of their duties, and you're in public territory. So, at minimum, in the hallways of the courts, you should be allowed to record. But I, in my own personal case, kept filing affidavits to my court record that I object to the judge holding hearings off the record, that he keeps making orders off the record with no transcripts to show what was said in court. And I object to him doing this. And what did he do? He did another one. So what did I do? I recorded it, I transcribed it, and I filed it to my motion to disqualify him. And he was pissed. But could he do anything to me? No, because in New York State, and I'm sure anywhere else, a judge may not punish as a contempt the attempt for anyone to produce a full and accurate court record. So while I could maybe get in trouble for recording in court, this judge would get in more trouble if he made a spectacle of me because he was violating due process. And there's the proof in the court record of me objecting to him having records off, having hearings off the record. So I don't super advise to anyone to actually do that. But what it shows, though, is we have a right to complete an accurate court record. And these judges holding hearings off the record, actually, you can record them because they're denying your due process right.
Yeah, and I think it's also important for people to remember that no matter what state you're in, that the due process rights and our constitutional rights and the federal laws that say that it's allowed to record the police, record, public servants and stuff like that, this should be superseding any policy, any rule, any regulation. They can't just say, well, it's our policy. I mean, a business can do that. A private company can say our policy is you can't come inside if you don't have shoes. And we're a private business. We can do what we want. But when it comes to these like public entities like the courts, they have to comply. And with ADA and, with due process, and the more that we hold them accountable, the more that, we're going to see reform. And
The the
we
other
do have
thing,
only maybe, I would say 5 or 6 minutes left. So are there any, what type of advice would you give for any other parents who are maybe new to the courts? And what would you like everybody and our listeners to know?
one quick more thing before I answer that question. I want people to know, at least in New York State, but it should be anywhere because it's public property. You can FOIL request camera recordings of things that took place in the hallways of courts, and they have to send it to you. So,
Oh,
and
you
I
know
have
what's
done that.
funny about that is that one time in the hallway, there was an incident that happened involving my ex, and he started like being threatening and things like that. And the marshal told me that I have the right to FOIA request the camera footage. So I
Yeah.
tried to, and the judicial branch denied my FOIA request, saying that they're not going to give it to me because it would cause a safety risk or a safety concern to the public. So how is
Well,
me having that footage a safety risk to the public? Maybe because it's going to show the public that these courts are doing such fraud.
And so what you need to do then is you need to take it to a higher level. So again, they're calling your bluff. They're lying to you and denying you something that was actually yours to have. So in New York State, a remedy that we have is an Article 78 to get them to do their job and comply with the FOIL request. Or after you try that, file a federal lawsuit, do an injunction and get that recording because it is yours.
Yeah, and I think, more people need to sort of familiarize themselves with the federal laws and the federal courts because at this point, doing things in the lower courts and the state courts can only get you so far. Once you start taking it up to these higher courts, going higher and higher, it's harder to do the fraud because they're doing things more so by the book.
So my answer to your question is, what should people do to protect themselves if they're new to the situation? It's like that saying that we all grew up with about drunk driving. Friends don't let friends drive drunk, right? Friends don't let friends go to court alone. It's not a safe place. So fill your courtroom, bring your family members, bring your acquaintances, bring them as long as they're not witnesses to come and sit in the courtroom and watch your case because again, that transparency fosters integrity and you have a better chance of the judge following the law because they don't want to be known for acting outside the law and making ridiculous adjudication. And the other thing is again, think about confidentiality because it doesn't always protect you. Yes, you have your right to privacy. However, because the courts aren't safe right now, I would err on the side of transparency.
And also, we just did another episode, I think yesterday, regarding the Americans with Disabilities Act and the ADA. And I know many times, at least like myself and others, will request as an ADA accommodation to bring a support person, and they actually allow the person to stand next to you. And so, just sometimes just having somebody by your side can mean so much and can help so much with the stress. And I mean, it's nerve wracking, especially when you know that they're breaking the law or committing perjury and having to stand there and listen to the other side lie through their teeth. It's triggering. So, being able to have a support person, taking advantage of these, because they can't deny you that. If you're saying like this helps with my, PTSD or anxiety, they have to allow it. And it gives you that extra witness and that extra support.
Some things to be careful for that I've noticed as a court watcher with disability accommodations. Yes, bring someone to sit next to you, but the CART transcription where you're getting feedback both auditory, but then you're getting the visual because they're printing out everything that's said before you as well. We court watched on a case where they put the CART transcription on a laptop between the litigant and her ADA sister that was sitting next to her. And within that laptop, behind the CART transcription, they had a Teams application running and they were eavesdropping on the sisters. And then the judge had an earpiece. And so they were eavesdropping and prompting the judge through that laptop on their desk. So be
What?
very careful. The
That
courts
is
are not safe.
insane.
Yeah,
Wow.
the courts are not safe.
Yeah,
So
it's
if you
like
can
they're not
mediate,
our
do that
friends.
too.
It's
I think you
absolutely
know that
insane.
I think you know the case that was in Katie Reiferd's case. We saw that happen. So I don't know if
Yeah,
you
and
followed her case.
you heard about that case in Colorado where the mother was going to jail because she didn't want to send the
Yes,
children to reunification. I heard
yeah.
that she was able to raise like $50,000 or something very quickly with her GoFundMe, and she was able to get like a new legal team, and then now things are starting to look up in her case. And so it really shows you like the power of social media, the power of speaking up, and they try so hard to cover this up, keep it quiet, seal records, destroy records, confidential proceedings. But the more that people stand up for their rights, the less our rights will be trampled upon. And so,
Which
you
which
know,
means if you have an attorney, still learn the law, as best you can because your attorneys might try to trick you too.
exactly. And a lot of them are going and having lunch with the judge, after court and making these backroom deals and thinking of themselves. They don't care about us. And so it's really important to be your own best advocate.
Yep.
Well, I want to thank you again for taking the time today to talk to us and definitely want to keep following your lawsuit, the RICO lawsuit that you filed in federal court. And if there's any updates that come up, be sure to let me know and we'll maybe have you
There
back
is some
again.
awesome, there's some awesome updates coming. I will inform you and you're going to be amazed.
Thank you so much. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And I appreciate you coming on again.
Thanks, Theo, and you have a great day too. And thanks for all you do and
Thank,
exposing and being that extra layer of transparency.
thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, bye.